All right, so when we are defining our aesthetic or developing, introducing or explaining the aesthetic for the company that we work for, um, it can come from products or it can come from environments. We're going to talk about those two things here. Products, again, multi-sensory information, right? So all of those sight, touch, smell, taste, all the feelings that they invoke, right? Those are all important, and these properties can be found in things other than our products, right? Other than apparel. So we find those in paintings and perfume and wine and art and architecture and nature, right? Oftentimes once we see something once, we can always see it in our mind's eye, right? Or we smell a smell when we want it, or we can taste it. We can taste something before we actually taste it, right? Really, really important. Those multi-sensory sensory properties. And again, when we're explaining our aesthetic, we're explaining it in a multi-sensory method. So, people don't have to touch it for us to say it's multidimensional or it has a unique hand, right? It feels, it tastes, it evokes. All those things are really important. That products are multi. I mean that products are multi-sensory. Okay, again, you can repeatedly see those. And in terms of apparel products, the aesthetics result in the interaction between our explanation, right, our telling of the garment, and the consumer's reaction to it on their body, right? So the consumer environment also is multisensory, right? It interacts with the product in the body, and often, the perception of a brand, right? So if I were to say, if I say the brand Gucci, and I say if I say the label Gucci, brand Gucci, and I say the brand Levi, that's what I have on my Levi shirt on today. Levi, we have two different multi-sensory experiences for that, right? We have a different, formal understanding of those two. We have a different expressive understanding of those two, and we have a different symbolism of those two, even though they are both iconic brands, right? They're both iconic brands, but we just have a different sensory experience, right? So even if you think about what would happen when you walk into a Gucci store, right? So when you walk into a Gucci store, what is the lighting, right? What do the walls look like? What is the feeling that you get? What does it smell like? What music are they playing, right? And let's have that same experience if you walk into a Levi's store, right? So what is the store visually? How does it look? What do the walls look like? What do the fixtures look like? What are the employees like? What is their appearance and their demeanor, right? What does it smell like? What kind of music is playing? They're two different sensory experiences, right? So that multi-sensory experience that we appreciate in different ways, depending on the consumer environment, right? So again, as you're developing your aesthetics, it's really important that you are able to verbalize that. And again, as a professional, fashion professional, like your visual, your aesthetics, right? It's that your first impression is your best impression. Like all of those things are important. Now, I'm not saying that you can't change it up. Like I have a lot. I wear things across the spectrum. Too. Like I said, I'm hip hop, R&B, urban preppy, upscale chic, boho. You can have. It's okay to have a lot of different things in your aesthetic, right? But in that moment, whatever you have on in that moment is how people judge you, right? Is how people judge you. So it's really important that the product and the environment, that they go hand in hand, right? And that there is a sensory expression for both of those things. And really, when we talk about the retail environments really are designed to produce emotional effects so that the consumer it will enhance the probability of the consumer making a purchase. So really important that you have an understanding of those two. Okay, and moving forward, right? Finishing off what I just said, right? The aesthetic experience, it shapes consumer responses. So again, developing your aesthetics will shape the response that you get. It's that perceived quality, brand satisfaction, selection and purchase. Aesthetics goes into all of those things, right? It is part of the, pleasure producing. We talked about those multisensories, right? That pleasing is really important in defining your aesthetics and the aesthetic experience overall. Okay, so one of the other things that aesthetics contributes to is what's known as non-instrumental benefit, and the nature of reward that is provided, right? So the non-instrumental benefit is that there is a utilitarian purpose, right? So there's a reason, there's some utility. There's a utility that goes with it. So right, so I'm wearing a denim shirt today because it's a little chilly in my house. Actually, I have my heated throw on my lap, right? So there's some utility that happens with that is aesthetically pleasing, right? Could I put a different shirt on? Yes, but in terms of the aesthetics for today, this was, visually appealing and will suit the purpose. Could I put a sweatshirt on? Absolutely. But aesthetically, I don't want to be that casual, right? In the video. Listen, I ain't go front. I got Nike leggings on the bottom, though. On the bottom, I am. But in this, and I have Nike, like the super logo pants on too. But, that there is some non-instrumental benefit, right? So there's a utilitarian purpose in the aesthetic, in the pleasingness, in the covering of the senses, right? So, we need to think really broadly in terms of our aesthetics and how we describe it, because it, like I said, it invokes an emotion, right? It takes in all of the senses, right? It takes in all of the senses, but it has some utility too. Like it is really useful for a purpose, okay? Useful for a purpose. Right, so that pleasure and satisfaction that is gotten out of your aesthetics, right? There's nothing better than putting together a look and getting compliment on top of compliment on top of compliment on that look, right? We love that. Pleasure and satisfaction is the reason why we dress like, right? So there are all kind of studies that show that men and women, so they dress for their own sex. And so I say that to say, so women dress in part for men, to attract men, but women really dress for other women. Like they really dress to get the compliments from other women. And the same thing with men. And men may not necessarily articulate that they want the compliments, but they dress for, we put together our looks for a reason, right? We want that gratification, some fulfillment out of it. And there's nothing better than somebody on the street giving you a compliment. I am so, I don't want to say, my son's not going to say, like, why are you talking to those people? What? I feel like that's the best thing that you could do out in the world, like to make the world a better place, is to tell somebody how great their outfit is, right? Like to compliment somebody on their hair or their jewelry or their outfit, or just somebody, like on the street, like, I like your look, sis. And I keep it pushing, right? Right. Or your curls are popping, girl. Right? Really important. They're like, your face is beat, right? It sounds really weird, but we do those things to get that, right? And unfortunately, often we don't get it, right? So you want to make the world a better place, give somebody a compliment, right? You just made your day. Think about when somebody's giving you an unexpected compliment. It makes your day. That's pleasure. And that's what aesthetics does. It provides pleasure, gratification, and fulfillment, and both positive and negative. So on the flip side, right, if somebody does us dirty and tells us that, your outfit was horrible, like, I don't know, you just get that feeling like you'll never wear it again. Like you will never wear it again. So negative emotions, right, can be the flip side of that, right, of defining our experience, right? So you may never do something again if somebody told you that it didn't look good, right? So that's really important to understand too, okay? And let's see, what do I want to do? I want to move on to the next lecture, next slide. Yeah, let's move on to, I'll do one more slide and then I'll wrap it up. All right, so there's some interconnection, right? There's interconnection of what we've been talking about, of these qualities we're talking about. So expressive, symbol, expression, symbolism, and form. So that formal, again, those formal qualities have the ability to evoke or express really a strong emotion. Feelings of excitement are created by what we're going to be talking about later in the chapter, later in the semester. Color and lines and balance. Symbols have that connotation too, right? So when I talk about the evoke emotions, especially when we're talking about symbolism, for our country, or symbolism for our sexual orientation, or symbolism for our race, all of those things, they evoke really, really, really strong emotions. Even symbolism behind the music that we listen to, the genre, the culture that we identify with, all of those things. There's an interconnectedness. And merchandising fashion professionals, right? Merchandising, design, fashion professionals have to recognize this expressiveness, right? These symbols that are needed when we're developing our design aesthetic. So again, when we get later in the semester, when we're talking about color, I have two very distinct color palettes that I don't say I shape my actually, I guess, yeah, we'll say two, maybe three, but I have specific color palettes that my wardrobe is shaped around. So these very earth tones, so rusts and browns and orange, and then these jewel tones of ambers and ruby reds and emerald greens and turquoises, right? And then I got a small little window of just like really bright yellows and neons and turquoises. So all those things are really important that we as we are developing our aesthetic, we understand that. And of course, black goes across the spectrum. I don't know if I told you, I think I told you in other classes that I say red is my signature color. I know that I look the best in red, and I have a lot of red in my wardrobe, right? So all of those things, understanding that, but red also has a symbolic nature for me too, because it's the color of an organization that I belong to, right? So all those things are really important, and that interconnectedness, we have to understand that interconnectedness. Okay, all right. So I'm gonna stop this part here, and then you'll come back one more time. There's gonna be one more piece that we'll finish off.